LinkedIn, I get a little bit of dramatic lighting there. There we go. And quite a bad case of hat head. Uh, my name is Frank Lavinia, and I'm doing something special today. Not just the angle of the sunlight, not just the angle of which I'm doing the stream, but also what's different this time around is I'm actually streaming from Linux. So, just as a background, obviously, folks know me, you know, longtime lover of Windows, since at least Windows 2000 or Windows 98, I guess, was the first version of Windows I really enjoyed. Although I guess technically Windows NT 3.5 was my first kind of exposure to a Windows that I really liked. I didn't like Windows 3. I kind of liked 3.1, but then 3.11 and then NT were my favorites. So I actually went and I installed Linux, specifically Red Hat Enterprise Linux, on this machine here, which is an older laptop. It's a ThinkPad P51S. And the reason why I installed Linux on it was because um, basically the hard drive died. Ultimately, the hard drive died, and I was like, "Well, I can be smart." I try to get it fixed, to try to get it repaired. Ultimately, once sent it to Micro Center, they couldn't repair it. Apparently, there's a known problem with this particular model, where the hard drive connector will eventually weren't soldered properly at the factory, and a lot of them are failing. But this is a nice machine, 32 gigs of RAM, i7 processor. It's a solid machine still, and I didn't want to just toss it. So, long story short, I do have another hard drive that I'm going to try to install in another slot because it turns out that there's a quirk of this motherboard design where it'll let you install basically a WWAN card, which is your cellular card, to it, but it also can support a certain type of hard drive. So I have that on order. So in the meantime, I try to install Windows off a USB and kind of just work off a USB. Unfortunately, that's no longer supported. There is a very kind of long-winded way to do it, but I just said, you know what? I got a Linux boot disk now. I've been experimenting with, and here it is. And I had another USB, kind of one of those little thin ones that just kind of just sit in the keyboard. I mean, the USB port. And I installed it. I booted off of it, and with the exception of one driver, so one of the things has really kind of been on my mind about, like, I don't know if I want to do the switch or was just the lack of drivers, right? It's not as bad as I feared. Now, on this docking station that I have, it actually did recognize that, but it did not recognize this other monitor because it's working through a display link docking station. So I have two docking stations. My monitor obsession is so deep and powerful that I actually have two docking stations kind of powering this setup, and it doesn't like one of them. Likes one of them, doesn't like the other. So that's not so bad. I can kind of live with that because ultimately, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to do data science stuff, maybe some Blender stuff, which is in the App Store that they have, and I will show what that App Store looks like. Give me a second. Um, let's see. Uh, Software. There it is. And let me drag it to this window here. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's in here that kind of is an app store type experience. You have, oops, let me make myself smaller. Um, there's games for developing, for creating, to be social, to create, for work. But what's interesting about this in particular is, I've kind of experimented a little bit with this. There's Thunderbird for email. Um, there's all sorts of stuff here. Um, how do I get back to the main screen? So there's Zoom, there's remote desktop. There's all sorts of stuff here that really you could get by with. And I actually install Chrome and Obviously, it comes with Firefox, but all my stuff from Chrome came over. I am streaming to you now through my browser, and which I think just really tells how much can be done in browser now. Another interesting thing I'd like to point out is the fact that I can run Office, right? How do you run Office? You do it through a browser. Right? I mean, I went to office.com and signed up with my credentials. All my documents are there. The experience is pretty much on par with installed Office. I mean, it's an interesting time we live in where I can do this. Now, this is maybe I'll do a dual boot when a new hard drive gets here, but rather than wait and just kind of, I don't have to wait for that. In fact, if I can't get that hard drive working, which has been kind of a problem, um, I can do all sorts of things. And, there's gaming now. I can probably install Steam and see what I can get running there. It's just interesting. And I know that there's multiple distros. I just happen to pick one that I needed to learn for work anyway. So, given that I work at Red Hat now, but it's pretty interesting, like how much I could be. So, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was like, well, even if nothing else happens, right? I can't get the new hard drive work. I can basically do what I usually mostly do this for, right? I can run notebooks. I'm have a Colab thing going now. Obviously, anything browser based I can do, and mostly what I use this laptop for is developing stuff. I can install Visual Studio Code. I can I install Python. And I can do my courses, right? I can also go LinkedIn Learning and complete with um, I can do LinkedIn Learning, right? So I can basically get this on the treadmill, get this on the bike or the elliptical, which is what I really wanted to do in the first place, and just watch my courses on that, right? It becomes a great machine for doing that sort of thing. Obviously, I can get to all my Office apps, all my email through Gmail or through Office.com. It's just amazing how much we've done through browsers and how revolutionary this is. In fact, what really kind of got me on this was my son is taking a class and he used a browser based utility. I think I talked about this on another stream called Photopea, where if you didn't look very closely, you would assume it was Photoshop, right? It's not Photoshop, kind of looks like it, kind of doesn't. All the keyboard shortcuts, thankfully, most of them are still there. They work the same way. And I, I'm impressed. It just the nature of how this is possible now with browser based tech. What's interesting here is I can kind of see the memory usage, CPU usage, um, and I can kind of see all the processes. I mean, if you're kind of a long-term Windows nerd like me, obviously there's a lot more I can do in Linux in terms of command line stuff, but the driver story, the user interface story, it's a little different. The GNOME desktop, and I'm sure there's hundreds of others. And if you have any suggestions for someone who's a noob in this space, let me know. But I mean, my sound works, the camera works, the onboard camera works. The This actually is one of those Windows Hello cameras, and when Windows I couldn't directly access it, but now I can. It actually came up as the default camera, which was funny because the picture looked all weird and distorted. Because it's basically an IR camera. So there's all sorts of stuff here that I mean, I barely scratched the surface. I've had this up and running now. I've experimented with this little boot drive here a couple of times because you can run uh, oops, you can run on top of it. And I plugged it into that machine, recognized both monitors, recognized the mouse, the keyboard, all the drivers, right? So with the exception of kind of one um, docking station, the display link, which apparently that's a thing. There's a lot of people asking them for Linux support. The driver kind of objection to going to Linux is not as bad as I feared. And if Windows support does stop, Windows 10 support does stop in 2025, like they're threatening, this is not the end of the world. I mean, obviously, the Adobe tools don't run here, but that's something that I can get a Mac for. I like Windows 10. There's some things I like about Windows 11. There's some things I don't. But of all the computers I have, Only one of them is capable. This machine here, I don't think is. Actually, no, it failed the test because it doesn't have the right kind of TPM chip. I understand what they're doing with the TPM module and requiring that, but having kind of that locking out almost all usable computers, except for very recent purchases or recent motherboards in the midst of a supply chain crisis. Um, Not the best move, in my opinion. As a Microsoft shareholder, I'm sure my opinions are valid. But I mean, I love Windows. I'm just, I'm just disappointed at some of the directions that Windows 11 went in. Hopefully, it'll correct itself. Usually, it does correct itself. If you look at kind of Windows 8 launch, the Windows Vista was corrected with Windows 7. Windows 8 was kind of corrected in 8.1, and then really improved upon in Windows 10. So, kind of every other generation, they kind of go off in one direction, they listen to customer feedback, and then they kind of pull back. So I'm hoping that'll happen with Windows 12 or Windows 11.1 or whatever it'll call itself. I do know that there is an update. So you could run your Android apps on the thing. So I'm gonna try that probably when I get a chance. But I just want to try this out, see if I can stream. Like, I mean, it picked up the driver for the microphone, it picked up, which is connected through the docking station. I mean, it's impressive in terms of how plug and play this is. The only thing that was kind of difficult was in order to create the um, even that wasn't difficult, right? I set up a VM, I downloaded the ISO, I set up a VM on that machine, and couldn't get the Windows version of the Media Writer, Fedora Media Writer to work. But it's pretty easy to do, and in the age of kind of fast internet bandwidth, um, if you're lucky enough to have that, it wasn't that complicated to set up. Now, would I put my mom on this? God rest her soul. Probably not. I probably wouldn't want her to run this, but it's actually not that bad. Like it's actually pretty easy to get started. Once you get used to a few things, people are used to different types of operating systems now, right? Because you either have Android or iOS as your phone or your tablet, and you have Windows, right? It's not, I don't know. I mean, if my mom were still alive, I would at least show this to her and show her that she can get to all her apps and her website. All this stuff's done through browser anyway, or some kind of browser related technology. Speaking of which, I have not yet installed Slack. That'll be my next test. I wonder if Teams is available in here, but I guess I could run it through the browser. Again, all this browser based tech, which as a former Silverlight developer, I mean, when I wasn't doing Silverlight, when I was doing the front end stuff, this was not really, if it were possible in a browser, it would have been very cumbersome and it would not have worked the same browser to browser, platform to platform. For the most part, this experience that I'm streaming you with using Restream is identical as it would be on the Windows PC I have here. So this is just fascinating how much this technology has evolved. And there's a couple of old PCs I have around. I want to try and boot up into Linux and see, hey, does that make that machine usable again? Can I have just kind of a kiosk or something like that? Like one of the things I want to do at my last job is we had don't tell me. We had we were doing flight tracking to basically kind of show kind of how would you ingest data from over the antenna into the Coverse platform. One of the things I want to try is kind of like it'd be cool to have a kind of a flight tracker or some kind of like kiosk there, shows family calendar, that sort of thing. Um, Obviously, I need to get better curtains, but I'm impressed with how easy this was. I was expecting this to be kind of a fight, get drivers and then look around and then do some settings and stuff like that. No, I mean, I the only thing I haven't tried is the multi-monitor rig, which maybe I'll try next. But just the ability to do this is pretty. The fact that I started earlier today and just booted it up, and it's just nice to have my personal laptop back. I know it sounds silly, but it's just nice to have it back. Is it back quite the same way? No. And realistically, if I do get the hard drive working, I probably will run Windows. But again, this is on one of those little, it's barely sticks out. It's probably like if you take this part here and get the camera, it's that small. I can dual boot. That's probably going to be my plan for this. Um, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. One thing I want to do try is there's a couple things I want to try. I haven't connected anything through Bluetooth yet, so I'm gonna try that next. Though I don't suspect that to be a major issue. And the Stream Deck I have, OBS actually is run. It's I believe that's also a Linux project. So who knows, man? This is just for someone who's lived in the Windows world almost exclusively for the longest time. This is just mind blowing. I bet I can even run Windows in a VM. Hmm, interesting. So that's it for me. I hope you have a great weekend. Today was kind of they called them recharge days at Red Hat. So I was going around taking care of some errands and things like that, and obviously poking around with this, having some fun with Linux and playing around. And yeah, that's all I got. I'm excited about this. I'm impressed with how well this is working. I even ran a couple of Python scripts, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm impressed with how well this is working. This is working way better than I thought it would. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate comments on that, but one of the things I was always kind of concerned about when installing Linux or possibly making a move to it would be finding the right drivers for things, because I don't think the software is really a problem, with the exception of the Adobe products. I would say that should things not go the way I like them to go in after 2025 in terms of support on Windows 10, with the exception of the Adobe products, I feel totally comfortable. And for that, I guess you can always get a Mac. I'm hoping Microsoft will stop, turn around, do the right thing. But other than that, I'm impressed. Linux has got a new fanboy today, like it needed anymore, but or needed my validation. But I am suitably impressed with this. So with that, I'm going to end the stream, and because I didn't start off with fancy graphics, I might as well end with one. Have a great day.